welcome back to PPCM's Painful Truth. Today's guest, Jamie Kephart.
Well, it's so nice to finally see you face to face and talk to you.
Absolutely. I am so grateful for your time today and talking about this, disease because
No, you're
talking
fine.
about this disease because basically, why don't you introduce yourself? I know you pretty well, from your following your journey, your heart journey and your health. And I'm just, my heart goes out and tugs out every post that you make, whether it's on Facebook or TikTok. Why don't you introduce yourself, where you are from or where you're at now, and when you were first diagnosed, actually PPCM, peripartum cardiomyopathy.
Okay. All right. So my name is Jamie Kephart. I'm 28 years old. I am originally from Palmdale, California. I got pregnant when I was 18 years old with my husband. We were currently living in Colorado. He's in the military, so we move around a lot. And I was diagnosed with PPCM during my pregnancy at 18 years old.
Wow, 18.
Yeah.
And who was, I guess, was it your OBGYN? Did you have a midwife, a birth keeper? Who was it that actually diagnosed you?
So, apart from, I feel like a lot of other PPCM moms, I was actually born with congenital heart disease. So I was born with aortic stenosis, and when I was 2 and when I was 12, I had heart surgeries to correct that. I did talk to my cardiologist about wanting to start a family and if there was any risks or anything. And I was told that I was, cleared. I was good to go ahead and start a family, that they didn't really see anything happening other than, all the other risks that could happen to any normal person. So when me and my husband decided to start our family after we got married, it happened pretty quickly. We weren't expecting that, but she was definitely planned, and I'm so thankful for her. I was being seen by maternal fetal medicine just because I was already considered a high risk pregnancy because of the aortic stenosis that I had previously had. So I was being seen by a cardiologist routinely, just every other month, just getting routine echoes and checkups and just making sure everything was going good. And I remember one day I went in just for a routine echo. I was having some shortness of breath and I was feeling really tired and fatigued, but, I was told that that's just all part of being pregnant, and so I never really thought too much into it. And so I remember
18 years old and your first pregnancy. So
away from all my friends and family, because my husband's in the military. So I literally was by myself,
Oh, right.
And so I was just, Google was like my best friend. And I mean, it just seemed like all the symptoms I was having, it was just normal. And so when I went in for my routine, echo, I remember I was laying there and they were doing the echo, and I remember seeing the technician's face just kind of completely change. And I mean, I really pick up on people's energies, and I immediately got scared, and I was just like, what's going on? And then I remember she got up and she said, I'll be right back. I'm going to go grab the doctor. And I was like, okay. And so I immediately knew something was wrong. And I was just flooded with anxiety. I'm already getting emotional. And I remember I remember my heart doctor came in and he started looking. And he told me that they found some unusual findings during the echo, and that he wanted to see me in his office after I got dressed and everything. So I immediately started crying because I was just like, oh my gosh, like what's going on with my heart? And so I went into his office and he sat me down and he told me that compared to the last echo and this one, it looks like I developed a rare form of heart failure called peripartum cardiomyopathy. And I just immediately, you hear like the words heart failure and you just like immediately think that like you're done, and so I remember just sitting there and crying to him by myself because my husband was gone. I was 18. I had no one with me. And I just remember thinking like, wow, I am pregnant with this little girl and she's going to grow up without her mom. And I remember he reassured me that this wasn't a death sentence and that he was going to put me on medications right away to try to turn this around. Yeah. And that although it is a rare form of heart failure, there has been some mothers who have recovered from it. And so it isn't impossible. And he just said, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you're one of those mothers that make it. Yeah. He was an amazing doctor. I absolutely loved him so much.
Was this the cardiologist?
Yes, this was the cardiologist.
So did the gynecologist ever diagnose you, or was it the cardiologist?
It was the cardiologist. So it was during a routine echo that I was having.
And how many weeks pregnant were you when the cardiologist?
I was about 5 months pregnant.
Okay. Yeah, that's when I started. 5 months. Okay, so because you have had heart conditions prior to peripartum cardiomyopathy, you knew to go to a cardiologist right away, or how did you know to do that?
So because I was seeing high risk OB doctors for my pregnancy, they advised me that they wanted me to see their cardiologist as well to follow along my pregnancy, just to make sure everything was coming along good.
What state? Because I know you move around a lot because your husband is Army. What state was this in?
This was in Colorado.
Okay, so Colorado had the awareness of peripartum cardiomyopathy enough to diagnose you during pregnancy.
Yes,
that's beautiful. That indicates that when a cardiologist is involved, there is early diagnosis.
Yes.
For this, and my doctor, my second heart anniversary after my heart procedure, when my Dr. Kara Watson, she saved my life. She's the director of the Barbara Streisand's Women Heart Association Program Fund, and she's very supportive to PPCM Fund and to what I went through as peripartum cardiomyopathy, because she always reminds me, Lindsay, you just didn't have cardiac arrest, but you had cardiac arrest death. And I did, and I was in that hyperthermia coma. And she did on Valentine's Day, February 14th, 2018, she went into my heart and she saved my life. And so that's why this docuseries is coming out on February 14th. I tried to always do something on, I was never diagnosed until my cardiac death. But my hope is to have more early diagnosis success stories.
Yes.
because it can, save lives. And
Yeah.
so when, I've recently, and we do have an interview coming up, um, I wonder if maybe I can even invite you, um, just because, you've had cardiac, you've been dealing with a heart since I think age 2. You were
Yeah.
mentioning, and
Since I was 2 months old. Yeah.
your first heart surgery was around 12 years old.
Yeah. So I had an angioplasty when I was 2 years old and it was unsuccessful. And so they wanted to wait until I was a little bit older to actually go in and replace my valves.
Mhm.
And that was when I was 12.
Yeah. So you've had quite a journey with your heart. And so this is award-winning doctors. And what I did was is I collaborated. It took me 5 years of like really pushing Women's Center at UCLA in California. And it's finally hit a peak where they do Zoom calls, at least once a month or something. And I'm I'm invited because I am the lead or the collaborative person between cardiology and gynecology,
Yeah.
because I fully believe that this is something that gynecology can't do alone. And so when I was expressing at every appointment that I've had with Dr. Watson that um cardiology needs to get with gynecology, and I just kept saying it over and over again. And so now it's finally it's connected. It is connected, and you're living proof saying this right now that you were in fact diagnosed because you had a cardiologist in hand and a relationship, and pregnant at 5 months you were able to be diagnosed.
Yeah.
So how I know that you've had a heart journey. How are you today? Um, with I know you have experienced a lot, but what medically, what has this journey for you, have like impacted you with a defibrillator or a pacemaker? Or I think you had a pacemaker, correct?
Yeah. So after I had my daughter, kind of backtracking. So during my pregnancy, after I was diagnosed with Bailey, my daughter, I was immediately put on some medications, some beta blockers, and they started giving me steroid shots because they knew I was probably going to deliver Bailey early, just because of how my EF was at the time, and it was quickly going down. And so I was on bed rest, and then I ended up getting admitted into the hospital because I just was not doing good. And when they did an echo in the emergency room after I went there, just because I was having some really bad symptoms, they saw that my EF it went from like 30% to 16%. And they were like, okay, so you're going to be admitted until you deliver your baby. And we don't think that you're going to make it full term, just because it just really is up to your heart right now. And so I remember them telling me, that there could be a chance that Bailey might not make it just because of how early I was. There was a chance that I might not make it. And so delivery was very weird for me and my family because it wasn't like an exciting thing like a normal mom goes through. It was like a very scary thing. Like we thought that me having Bailey, one of us wasn't coming home. It was either me or it was her, and
Right.
so that was really hard for all of us. I was being closely watched in the hospital, and my EF had dropped down to like 13 or 14%. And I remember they came in and they were just like, your heart, my BNP was super high. My EF was getting lower and lower. And I remember they were like, we're going to induce you tonight and you're going to deliver probably sometime tomorrow morning. And at this point, I was 9 weeks early with Bailey. So I was only about 31 weeks pregnant. And so I know that they induced me, and I got my epidural at a 0.5 centimeter because they didn't want me to feel any pain, because with pain, your heart starts acting crazy. They didn't want to put any more pressure on my heart. And so they gave me an epidural at 0.5 centimeter. They kept the medicine going, so I was pain-free. I didn't feel any contractions or anything. But along with that, I also was not allowed to push, because that was going to put strain on my heart. So they went in with forceps, and they actually removed her out of me with forceps. She went straight to the NICU just because she was having trouble breathing. She was only 3 pounds when she was born.
Wow,
And other than that, she was doing amazing. And I, on the other hand, was just still kind of trying my best to stay afloat. They let us both go home about a 1.5 weeks later. Bailey had put on some weight. They said that they weren't worried about her, like everything. She was checking the boxes for everything. Bailey was doing amazing. So that was like such a blessing compared to what we were told when I was, pregnant with her, because they just have to warn you about all the things, that could happen with a premature baby. And thankfully, I mean, none of those bad things happened. She was amazing. But after we came home, I was on a ton of heart medicine. And I remember taking a shower one day, and I told my husband, I was like, wow, like I just look like I'm pregnant again, so I was really sick during my pregnancy.
So you were swollen.
Yeah. When I got pregnant with Bailey, I was 135.
Mm-hmm.
And when I left the hospital, I was 117.
Mm.
So I lost so much weight. I lost so much bone mass, muscle mass. And so I remember standing in the shower, and I was like, wow, like I look like I'm pregnant. And, my husband's trying to be nice, and he's like, Jamie, you just had a baby. Like, you look great, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, really though, like my stomach, it looks like I'm pregnant again. And then I immediately the next day started feeling extremely sick. Like I had the flu or something. And it got to the point where like I couldn't even breastfeed Bailey anymore. I needed help getting out of bed. I couldn't even like walk to the bathroom. And so my mom was there visiting, and she called my heart doctor and told him. And he said, bring her in like immediately. Like she needs to come in right now. And so I went in, and I remember the first thing he told me was he touched my stomach. And he said, does your stomach look like it's bigger to you? And I said, yes. And that's what I've been saying. And he said, yeah, you're in extreme heart failure right now. We're going to have to admit you. And I was admitted for almost a month right after I had my baby. So thankfully my mom was there, because I had this premature baby who could not come to the hospital and stay with me or see me, because she already, being preemie, she's immunocompromised. Hospital's a dirty place for a premature baby. And so my mom stayed at home with the baby, and me and Albert, my husband, we were back in the hospital for about a month until they finally got me stable and got my medicine regimen under control and my Lasix, and, drained me out of like fluid. And, so it was a really rough time. But unfortunately, even now, 8 years later, my EF has never fully recovered. I've never recovered from PPCM, and I have had.
What is your EF today?
The last time I got it checked, it was 32%. Last year it had gone down from it. The highest it's actually been was 45, and then it went down to 25. And now they put me on Entresto, and that has really helped it come back up, but it's still only around 31, 32%. But
has your device ever gone off?
No. So, a couple years after, everything with Bailey and giving birth and everything, just because of how enlarged my left ventricle and my atrium is, I started having electrical misfires. And so I was having a ton of episodes of AFib. And I didn't know what AFib was. So I thought I was just having heart palpitations every now and then. And I honestly ignored it because I was just like, oh, like it's just a heart palpitation. I have heart issues, you know. By the time I actually found out I was in AFib, I was being transported in an ambulance from one city to another, and they sedated me and did a TEE before they cardioverted me, and they found a large blood clot in the atrium of my heart. And I remember they woke me up and they told me, we were unable to cardiovert you and get you back into a normal sinus rhythm because we found a large blood clot in the atrium of your heart. And right there, I mean, you know all these bad things about blood clots, and to actually find out it's inside of your heart sitting there and it could dislodge at any moment and instantly you can stroke out and die. Like that is the scariest thing I think anyone can hear. And so I was on intense blood thinners and stuff for about 6 to 8 weeks. They were doing routine TEEs. Like I know that they did one at 4 weeks and then they did another one at 6 weeks. And the 6 week was, I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks after the blood clot had completely dissolved. And so they were able to cardiovert me and get me back into a normal sinus rhythm. But my heart just completely kept going back and forth over the last 5 years. I've been cardioverted 29 times. And I have had 2 AFib ablations, and all of them were unsuccessful. I've been on 4 different AFib medications, unsuccessful. And so last year, they finally they ablated my AV node and gave me a pacemaker.
So, are they saying that your norm now is in the 30s?
So they haven't said that that's my norm now. They're hoping it's going to come up. I haven't been on Entresto that long. So they're hoping it will come up, but they don't think that I will ever fully be recovered.
Do they recommend not working out or getting into, like your heart rate, getting your heart rate up?
Yeah, so I actually was just cleared. Last year, it was really going back and forth of if I should or if I shouldn't, because anytime I really did any cardio or any activity that got my heart rate going, I would flip into AFib. And so they kind of were like, all right, like, let's take it slow. But now that I'm 100% paced on my pacemaker, I actually was just cleared a few weeks ago to start doing minimal activity, getting into cardiac rehab and trying to strengthen my heart muscles again.
So when my percent was 10, and I had mine, I don't know if you can see, my device was removed, but when I had it in, I got my EF percent back to a norm, consistent. Okay. So what I did was I on Amazon I got these foam weights, the handheld weights, the foam water weights, and just because like it's no impact really on your heart, because when you're swimming, let's say when you're swimming, you can feel like, oh gosh, like I had to start slow. So what I did was I would take my little water foam weights, and I would walk in the shallow end from back and forth with my water weights, and I'd move my arms, and I'd reach up, like lead with my heart, and take those breaths and just kind of like move around a little bit. And because our heart is a big muscle, and so I thought, I'm a really big, just I've been a dancer like my whole life, and a yoga like, and so for this to have happened to me, I was like, this is not right, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I was in the ocean surfing like almost every day, and like, you know, at one point in Cocoa Beach, Florida, you know, I I I love the water, and I thought, well, I can't do what I did, but I'm gonna start, and I'm gonna start slow, and I'm gonna get my heart rate up in the pool because it's low impact on my back, because I had kidney failure, and then my ankles were so swollen. So I was like, this is great because it's not,
Yeah.
there's no impact on any muscle of my body, but I'm working, I'm getting my heart rate up, you know. And so
Okay.
then I started to do aerobics with like this 70-year-old women, and don't let them fool you, man. That was a
Yeah, right.
good workout. And they'd be like, oh, I got a pain right here. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I got a defibrillator right there. You know, so they were my
Yeah.
people. Um,
Yeah.
but I did it every day to the point where now, like, I'm swimming laps, and I can go under and, you know, and swim. And I beat my fear of, you know, suffocating,
Yeah.
because, and I did have like a panic attack. I remember, with my husband, we went to, a Thanksgiving dinner at his grandma's, and I had a panic attack in the pool. And that's when I realized, okay, I need floaties. I have to beat this because this is a fear of mine, but I have to get my EF percent up. And so
Yeah.
I was at a 10%, and I've now been at I have to get my echo, like, actually, I think Monday or something. I have an appointment, but it's now up to 64.
Oh,
So
wow.
I realized that if you might not get your heart rate up to fully recover. Now, I had cardiac death. You've had heart problems your whole life, but I do believe in in massaging that heart,
Yeah.
and getting it pumped, but not pushing it, because I knew not to go straight into like yoga or go into my stuff because it's too much impact pushing up, or too
Yeah.
much, you know, you can pull the heart muscle too. So you want to just kind of like, get that area kind of always going. I always felt that foam weights really kept me up above water,
Yeah.
so I'd be swinging my legs back and forth and doing all this stuff, and next thing you know, I'm in shape. I can breathe better. My EF percent went up. So I don't know, but I did do it with lifeguards around me at the first
Okay.
time. I made
Yeah.
sure that there were lifeguards around me. And I
Yeah.
also brought my baby in with me too. We did a class, and I started getting him involved swimming at like 8 months old. But if you can find like a rec center, or with and make sure that they have like a lifeguard there, and
Yeah.
let them know, say I'm maybe like an hour a day, or like 45 minutes a day. Just start slow, walk
Yeah.
back and forth in the pool with your foam weights, and then lift your legs up, and next thing you know, you're gonna I I would hope that it would, raise it, because there's got to be some sort of, I
Yeah.
think, help on the person's end as well. Like, we wouldn't
Yeah.
want to baby ourselves, but then again, we want to be very careful as well. But we want to recover fully and keep that
Yeah.
recovery.
Yeah.
I don't know
Definitely.
if that suggestion helps, because I think that I don't think, I know that it tremendously helped me. I mean,
Yeah.
I would notice a difference when I would stop, and then I would notice the difference when I would just be consistent. And it really does. It helps me breathe. It helps me, get in that deep, satisfying breath. I don't,
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
sometimes I
I'll
open my,
definitely have to check that out and
I mean, I
try.
still open my mouth sometimes, and I'm like, hey, babe, can you push right here on my heart, on my back? And then he'll push, and I can get that deep, satisfying breath. I don't know if
Yeah.
you get that. Do you get that?
Yes, I do. Yeah. Yeah.
It's very scary.
Yeah.
And I'm
It
like,
is.
okay. So then I have to like blow out
Yeah.
all the air. so I can just, take that deep, satisfying breath. There is like
Yeah.
definitely meditation within breaths. I mean, people
Yeah.
don't realize that, we have 100,000 beats a day. And when that's one breath is taken away from you, it's scary.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I think people take the littlest things for granted until, something like this like happens to you, and then you just really see life in a whole different perspective.
Absolutely. I mean, this definitely changes you when when possibly, staying on the other side, knocks on your door,
Yeah.
and you're not ready because you're young and you
Hmm.
just had a baby and you're like, I want to
Yeah.
live, and you have all these challenges. It's really, it's scary, and I love what you're doing with your TikTok. I mean, I
Thank
feel
you.
like a dinosaur because but I did have
Oh,
but it's almost like I worked on this TV show back in the day, and it reminded me of this. It was an NBC show called Life, and it was
okay.
about. I loved it. I loved the director and everything. I loved working on the show every day. I loved going to set. But the script was very powerful to me, and I kind of relate with it right now. It was a it was a scene. The script was in a short story is that he was a cop that ended up, he was like a little dirty cop, so he ended up in jail. A police
Okay.
officer ended up in jail. And he was in jail for like about, I don't know, I think like 7 years or six
Oh, wow.
years. And so, but he was brilliant, brilliant, like the most, everybody wanted him, he was like a brilliant detective and everything. But but back in the day, he had a beeper, like, when you call and you get a beeper
Yeah.
call. And so, but now there's like cellular phone, there's actual phones and there's not pay phones. And so he comes out of jail or prison, and like everything's changed. And
Yeah.
so he's like trying to get with the times, he's like, well, what's that? Like, and, but he's like the number one, like detective that everybody wants, but he's just like so outdated, you
Yeah.
know? So I coded in 2016. I didn't even know who was like, I think it was like president or anything, because I was dying. And so I coded, and I woke up, and like now there's like, and then I had the heart surgery in 2018, and then PPCM, my mom got cardiac arrest, or she didn't have cardiac, she had walking pneumonia, and then she died of heart failure right after my heart surgery, which was awful. And then my father passed away in 2019, and then COVID hit. So it's like I'm trying to get with the times. Meanwhile, I started a nonprofit and like spreading awareness and
Which
helping
is so
women.
amazing, by the way. Like, that's so amazing that you did that.
Yeah, well, I hear women, and I'm a huge advocate for women anyway. I mean, I have my master's in social work, and I believe in mental health, and I believe in that this is a huge part. You can't have peripartum cardiomyopathy without having, you know, postpartum depression. And so
Yeah.
I'm a huge advocate, and here, the way that I cope is by helping others. I mean,
That's
my
amazing.
undergrad was, I got my bachelor's in human services, which is people helping people. So, and K through 6 education. So, I do love families. I love women. I love lifting women up. And I just hear them screaming from the rooftops,
Yeah.
I'm not being listened to. I don't feel well, and I'm
Yeah.
being brushed off. And, I've noticed that this is just going on and on and on. And this year I finally was just like, okay, I've grieved my parents. I've grieved myself with PPCM. I am somewhat recovered, not really, but enough where, I have my days. And I'm like, but when that one girl died November 21st, 2021, at the same hospital, at one of the largest hospitals in Beverly Hills, the best of the best, with the best doctors, but nobody's the best with lack of awareness. Women are still dying. And that
Yeah.
one girl that died, I said, I'm starting a docuseries. I'm starting a podcast. I'm moving forward. I've turned down already like 2 TV shows, a movie. I mean, I've turned down a lot of work. I've been working in the industry in Hollywood for over 18 years, and
Yeah.
I had to rechange my entire life, which is fine. I still get work on the side that I use to like help women. I mean, we have over 2,000 copays just from, only 2 girls this month, but like, there are a lot of survivors that
Yeah.
are struggling.
Yeah.
And,
Definitely.
this docu-series that I'm doing, is about the United States of America women, the US women, because we want to take pieces of different countries' legislations, because like Canada, they don't have insurance every month, and they don't have women that are diagnosed with this disease in America are paying like $50 to $100 to $300,000
Yeah.
with the heart and the disease and the baby and everything. And some women I've spoken to, they don't get out, they're still in debt, or their baby is 8, their son is 8 years old, or PPCM baby is 8, and they just got out of debt. So
Yeah.
and the women that are in Canada, when I ask them, how are you doing, financial, they don't have any financial because their healthcare is completely covered.
Yeah.
American, when we have to pay for our external vests, like Nicole, she's it's $5,000 for 3 months, but they don't own it. So it's entrapment for, to say, oh, if you want to live and have the vest, then it will cost you $5,000 for 3 months, but you do not own it.
Yeah.
Most women give it back.
Yeah.
And so if they don't have like the support from like, a nonprofit or something like that, they give it back and they take the risk. So our American dream for women with maternal mortality is to be diagnosed during pregnancy, to have a cardiologist during pregnancy, or to have the proper lab screening and testings at least during pregnancy, so then that way a cardiologist can be on a backup call.
Yeah, definitely.
And this interview actually proves that.
Yeah.
And that's why I think it's so important when we talk about women talk, because it really, you'll see correlations with each interview, that the similarities of what American women have, the similarities that we all have as a women globally, as a unit, as one, as women. We all have the same, we all use the same words to describe on what we need to do to move this forward. And I'm going to ask you that as well, because I'm sure it's unanimous. It is. It doesn't matter if a woman's in Scotland or the UK or Canada or America. We all have the same goals with this disease.
Yeah.
And so, with your journey and your pacemaker and all of this, I mean, today, I guess, how old's Bailey now today?
She's 8. She's about to be 9, February 7th.
So she's probably a very compassionate, sensitive, tough little girl.
Oh, she is. Yeah. And she is well aware of everything going on with me. I don't know if I mentioned this on here yet already, but since my heart has never recovered, and, the last year has really been a big decline in my heart health, I'm now on the heart transplant list.
Okay, great.
I've been on the heart transplant list for a year and a month.
Mm-hmm.
I was listed at Mayo in Scottsdale, Arizona, and now I recently just moved here to Tennessee. So I'm in the process of getting on the heart transplant list here in Nashville at Vanderbilt, which is pretty amazing because they're one of the, they're the #1 leading heart transplant hospital in the world. So I feel very like blessed to be here. But yeah, Bailey is very aware of everything going on. She has a heart of gold. She is so compassionate. She's so loving. She's so caring. She's just amazing. She's literally like the biggest blessing I could have ever asked for. She's such a sweet little girl. And anybody who knows her would say the same exact thing. Like, I'm not just being biased because she's my daughter. Like, she really is.
I think our PPCM babies are so, I mean, that's how like my Liam is, you know. I mean, it's just they have the awareness of, you know, they do. I mean, I went like for even Liam at such a young age, you know, he'll kiss my, my heart or my scar, or he'll say, boo boo, or he'll say, he'll ask questions like, what does heaven look like? Or I don't ever want to die, or I don't want you to die, or
oh yeah, Bailey says that to me all the time. Like I have so many videos of me coming home from the hospital and her just bursting out into tears because she verbally has said she was scared I wasn't going to come home. One time I had to go to the hospital while she was at school, and I was there for a little over a week. And when I came home, I remember she was just sobbing all night and like would not leave my room. She was just in my arms, and I remember her telling me that she was scared I wasn't coming home, and it hurt her so bad because she didn't get to give me a hug bye because she was at school. And that just like broke my heart. I'm like, no 7-year-old should have to tell their mom that, like she's a child, and her biggest concern was that I was going to die in the hospital and she didn't get to give me a hug bye because she was at school. Like it's just devastating. It's so sad.
It's so sad. And that's what I can relate to that the most, because Liam is a very expressive little boy, just probably like Bailey. And he has, not with my husband, but with me, he has like separation anxiety. Even for me to go to the store,
so does Bailey.
Hug, or he'll be like, "Be safe, mommy," or he'll like, I mean, it broke my heart one time. I had to go get like an EKG and stuff, but he literally was at his window crying with tears coming out of his eyes, like, don't.
It's scary for them.
Or take me with you, and because he didn't know if I was, I mean, it's scary for and I have, it's scary. I mean, he remembers, I mean, at a young age, I mean, I coded with him in the bed with me, but he also didn't know where I was for a while when I was in a coma, so he, and then, when I was home, I was dying again, I was allergic to the device. So for 18 months, I was literally not, and I was trying, still doing the water thing and everything like that, which I think saved me. I think strengthened me for the surgery, even my doctor said, your heart was blue black. I pulled out the wire and your heart started to pump red again. And so like, I literally felt my body deteriorate. First time I was deteriorating from PPCM and cardiac arrest, it was a totally different like death experience. Like it was like really bad. And this one was more scary because the first one I wasn't aware of. Second one, I still, I'll never forget the photo that you have. I have the same one. We're both in like getting ready for our surgery. We're in that like, get where they give you that cocktail. The cocktail. And you have to sign your life away. You got to sign it that if something happens,
Yes, which is so scary. I still get so much anxiety every time I sign that paper.
Me too.
Because it just hits you like what could happen. Like once you go to sleep, you might not wake up, and you just don't know. It's so terrifying.
It is. It really is. And I can probably relate with you too, like in a sense where when you go to a new hospital, I know this is weird, but when you go to a new hospital, do you get to look into your surgery room at all to they're gonna do your surgery?
You
Sometimes
know,
do you hop on your table yourself?
I've never asked, but I'm wondering if they would let me. I mean, I think that sounds pretty cool.
So I did this. It was the one that was where was I? I was in New Jersey. I was hemorrhaged to death, but from that one.
Oh my
But
gosh.
yeah, it was bad. Yeah, that's why we have to know our BNP test number because it determined my the cancer that comes with PPCM. It
Okay.
elevates it. So I know
Oh,
my
wow.
BNP test number now always because that was what caught it. So I'm like, yeah. So, but I didn't know that the fluid can cause lift the cancer cells up and it's pretty common. There's a correlation between that.
Oh, wow.
Um,
I've never heard that.
yeah. If you were
Wow.
to do research on like, does the BNP test determine like fill in the blanks, like dementia,
Okay.
cancer, all of that, and it
Yeah.
does because it shows the level of the elevation level of like the
Oh,
blood and
wow.
everything. So they can determine, okay, this is not heart failure, this is something else, and then they do run other tests. So there's ways to. It's early that the BNP test is like saved my life the second time, not the first time because it wasn't provided, but the second time it did. So here I'm in New Jersey and I'm like, okay, and my mom just passed away. My mom was like, if you ever have, we have the best doctors, da, 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 Philadelphia, Morristown. So I did. I went to the cancer center in New Jersey and near Cherry Hill. And so they were like, they're like, do you want to be wheeled in? Do you want to walk? I was like, actually, I was like, can I just like walk in and like, like, can I see what it looks like with the room? They're like, sure. So I was like, so I asked and they let me. So it was the coolest thing ever. They, it was well, not ever, but it's a bed
Huh.
that's a water bed and
Oh,
it was pink and it was because of cancer, but it was pink and they were flushing water in it and it was warm and they said that we can regulate your body temperature. We regulate your body temperature by either making the water hotter or colder. So
oh, wow.
when you're lying there and they're doing surgery on you, they I mean, I don't know if this is on at most, but this happened twice where I where they put you on a waterbed,
Oh,
and then
wow.
yeah, and then
I
they
did not know that. That's
and
cool though.
yeah, so then that way when they give you they gave me the cocktail when I was on the bed,
Hmm.
and I make sure to, I mean I do laser anyway now everywhere, but at the time I make sure they don't shave because that would
Yeah.
hurt. So I always make sure I'm like prepared, and
Yeah.
it was like I'm like it's you become very surgery savvy, I want to say,
Yeah.
like you become like savvy with like, okay, like the first time you're like second time you're like terrified, third time you're like interested, what does the room look like, where am
Yeah.
I lying, like what are you doing to me, like
Yeah.
and it was really cool. If you ever ask them, say, do you do your surgeries on like water beds and you like make the water bed more warm, like the water warm to like bring up my temperature up or down, like it's kind of cool, like
Yeah.
if
That's
you look at
awesome.
everything. I was like observing the entire room and I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
I do remember when I had my first open heart surgery when I was 12, they asked me if I wanted, and I was a kid, so I was super scared of needles. I remember they said that they could put me to sleep with an IV while I was still in the room with my family, or they could wheel me into the operating room and
Oh,
put
that
me
was
to sleep
nice.
with the gas, which they
Hmm.
use anyways. And
Right.
then they could do all the IVs after I was already asleep so I wouldn't feel it. And I remember I asked for it that way because I was so scared of needles. I was like, oh, I don't want to, I don't want to be awake for an IV. And, I was only 12 at the time. And so I do remember going into that operating room. But I mean, as far as I remember, it was just a regular bed. But yeah, and I remember too, I was still awake and they were strapping my arms down. And I remember I was holding one of the nurse's hands and I was crying and I asked her to please don't let me die. And, I was 12 years old at the time. And I remember she was like, sweetie, like we are going to do everything we can to make sure that you are okay. Don't think like that. Like you have the best doctor. I had it done at Cedars-Sinai. And yeah, but I remember seeing that room. So, and then, I mean, I've had,
Wait,
AFib ablation.
Cedars-Sinai?
Yeah. What was that?
That's where Cedars-Sinai is in Beverly Hills, right?
Yeah, that's where I went.
That's who that's why I started this docuseries.
Oh.
They are the whole East-West wing. I had every symptom under the sun and they all never diagnosed me ever. And then I went there after giving birth. I was 105 pounds when I first got pregnant. And then I was like 197 pounds when I gave birth. And then I kept getting more and more swollen.
Yeah.
Because I was drowning in my fluid.
Oh my gosh.
They said I was completely healthy and fine. They said it was awful.
Wow.
The high risk management team, not supportive, and my doctors made me feel like it was my fault. I got the bad luck.
So you were diagnosed at Cedars-Sinai?
Mm-mm.
Oh no. Okay.
I went there. I remember it was my mom's birthday on November 16th, and I knew I was dying. I was saying my goodbyes. Like nobody was listening to me. My baby was already 3 months old, and I knew I was dying. And so I went to Cedars-Sinai ER because my doctor's like, you're fine. And I went to the ER and they gave me an IV and they said I had a urinary tract infection. They said, have a great Thanksgiving. You can go on your Thanksgiving and you'll be fine. So we went to Arizona, Phoenix, and I don't remember the drive. I don't remember what I ate. I don't remember anything. All I remember is a woman there with big red lipstick lips giving me a needle this big in my butt, and it hurt really bad. And I remember I couldn't put my socks on, and that's the last thing I remember. Oh, and I let a balloon go, a little girl's balloon go, but I don't remember anything else. And my husband's like, because you slept the entire time and you didn't eat, so I didn't have Thanksgiving. But I had a cardiac stroke in the bed with the baby. And so my husband pulled me on the floor and gave me CPR. And then when the ambulance came, I was already pronounced dead. So they had to, I kept coding, and like my heart would stop over 30 minutes, like each cardiac arrest. So it was like really intense. And then when I woke up from like the hyperthermia coma, it took them like 12 days just to like thaw my body out. And then I remember the nurse, when I woke up, she was like welcoming me back. She's like, do you know what happened? And she said, she was like crying to see me waking up. Actually, I remember that. And she's like, it's so wonderful to meet you. And, we didn't think you were going to wake up. And,
Yeah.
And you survived death, and you're a medical phenomenon because you should not be here, and you should not be here, let alone brain dead, and you are diagnosed with peripartum cardiomyopathy. And so I said, what's that? And when I woke up, I had a defibrillator in. I woke up from 12 months prior, I was very, very healthy, skinny, 105. Like my body was like, insane, because all I did was work out sometimes, and I had an active career. So in Hollywood, this was just so like 12 months later, I had my times of death called, and it was so bad. I went back to Cedars-Sinai to say, have you heard of this disease? And they immediately shut me down, like just in every way, shape, and form. Not me, the disease. The unwillingness to listen and to hear me and to ask me questions. What did you feel? Instead, Allison Canavan, my doctor kept looking at the computer, and she's looking at the computer, and I'm sitting right there, and I'm like, look at me. I'm sitting right here. Maternal mortality. I don't care what your notes say that I'm fine. I wasn't fine. I'm right here. I like literally had death. And now I'm standing here to say that I was never diagnosed. I was never treated. The only treatment that I have was you gave me a nutritionist because you said I was gaining weight. I was getting fluid.
Yeah.
It's a different type of weight, but they wouldn't listen. So November 21st, 2021 at Cedar Sinai, this past November, a young woman, she died, Leah. Her husband's an actor. Or not her husband, her father, actually. Her father, Robert, is an actor. And she died. And that's when I said to my husband, I said, okay, well, you know what? I'm done grieving. I will always grieve and mourn my parents. I will, I'm fine. But these other girls aren't. Women around the world aren't. Medical community have their medical documentation, but we don't. And my medical documents, my medical records were completely different than the one from the high risk management, and we wanted that high risk management medical records, my own personal medical records, and they wouldn't give them to me. So there was something behind that made me feel like, okay, this must happen to a lot of women. And then I started to learn it actually does, and that it's actually very common. It's just rare to be diagnosed. And why is American women, why is the lack of education and training and all of that, where is the disconnect? So then I started to do my own due diligence and to learn that that PPCM fund is run by survivors, by PPCM survivors. I started this platform because we're the ones that have the knowledge, because we're the survivors. Wounds have wisdom. And we can put the PPCM puzzle together, as women globally, but most definitely women in America. So we start here, let's start at least with, within our home. And so once the passing happened this past November, and the fact that there has been deaths there after childbirth, and one of them I knew, and her mother, or her mother-in-law, is Judge Hatchett, and very sad story. And they say she died of blood clot and stuff. But you know what? The thing is that maternal mortality it is too high in our country. When we pay too much money for insurance, and the lack of education and training and the collaboration of cardiology and gynecology is now finally, like I said, my cardiologist says you were a big part of this movement for cardiology and gynecology at UCLA for Women's Center, because, I just have been relentless, and to the point where, this does change us. We had a reroute. I mean, you're doing TikTok videos, and I think that that's a great way. This platform, even on TikTok, you tagged PPCM Fund. All PPCM women should tag. It's at PPCM Fund Survivors, because this is our group. This is
Yeah.
our group. This is the donations that come in. They go to the women,
Yeah.
for co-pays, the studies and the IPAC research lab, whatever funds that are raised for them. And so, and for the awareness to just keep coming out and keep docu-series this, so until there is justice. And
Yeah.
I realize I can't do this myself, and I don't want to. You're part of a woman that survived maternal mortality along with these other women.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of women that, I mean, during pregnancy or after pregnancy, you had a blessed situation that your cardiologist was on board, but you're not, because you still have this disease
Yeah.
that, and
I'm still not recovered. I'm still needing, a whole new heart to live. Yeah, it's scary. It definitely is.
And
it doesn't just go away.
Yeah. And so, and that's how we all feel, we all feel kind of like, cheated, like we want justice, like we want to be, we want to be heard, and we want to know that others, like your daughter, like my son, that the awareness is not just the awareness. By the time they're our age, the awareness will already be done. It will be the standards, labs, and testings for all pregnancy will be at that point hopefully mandatory.
Yes. Yeah.
And so we are kind of like we are the baby boomers. And I always say, this should be an ancient conversation, because women have been giving birth since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
But we're having this for the first time.
Yeah.
So it's a fight to be.
Yeah, definitely.
We are warriors. I mean,
yeah,
a warrior fights for what they believe in.
Yeah.
And it's shouldn't be.
Yeah.
Because we thought women rised above this already.
Definitely.
But we haven't. So, I think that there is truth to this pain.
Yeah.
And that's why I do call it the painful truth, because it's painful.
Definitely.
Mentally, all of it. And
yeah.
how do you cope with it mentally, with all of this? Like, what are your
honestly, I really think like all I can do is pray. I journal a lot. I go to therapy. And I recently just got put on Zoloft.
Love
and it. Yeah, that has helped me a lot. It really has.
Gosh.
But I think definitely, I've always struggled like over the last 8 years, since getting PPCM, with anxiety and depression, just because, everything that PPCM comes with. But I think what really made me hit rock bottom was me getting so sick last year to where I had to be evaluated to be on the heart transplant list, and the heart transplant team telling me, just exactly how bad my heart was. And I remember when I was in the hospital, for all my testing and everything, I had to go and get a right heart cath, and my pressures were so high in my lungs and in my heart that they admitted me into the ICU. And I stayed there for like 7 to 8 days. And that's where I finished my transplant evaluation. They were, just coming into my room. And I remember my husband was there with me, and I cried literally for like 3 days straight. I wasn't eating. I couldn't drink. Like, I just felt so sick. And I was just like, gosh, like, how does all of this happen just from having a baby? Like, it's a really crappy thing thinking that, you had this beautiful blessing, but now like they're probably going to have to grow up without you. It's like, as a mom, like you don't want to like have a baby and then not be there for them, and that's all that was going through my head was like, oh my gosh, like you're telling me like I can't live with this heart forever. Like you're telling me like it's that bad that you need to take it out and I need a whole new one, and then on top of that, they found out that I have extremely high antibodies, which makes it very, very hard for me to even get a heart transplant because with the type of antibodies that I have, I'm not compatible with like half of the donors. I guess like the highest.
You do? You go to the UK. Okay, so you go to the UK and you go to that doctor that just did the transplant of, well, no, it's not just, and they have done a lot of studies on it. Actually, it's a little kind of scary because you can live past 100, but they now have mechanical hearts.
I know, I saw that.
But
I did see that.
But one of the women she kept living over 100 something years old.
Oh my gosh, like, that is crazy.
It's too good.
Yeah.
It's too good. You might want to get it to stop. You'd be like, okay, now take it out.
I know, right? You know? Like I know here at Vanderbilt, they were talking about putting me through, it's called desensitization. So I'll get like a catheter or like a little port thing right here in my chest. And I'll be inpatient for that. They said it takes about several days. And they give you plasmapheresis, IVIG, and then you have to take injections. So pretty much what it does is it helps like block out any new production of antibodies. And then it kind of wipes out some of your current antibodies and kind of just keeps it, from my understanding, I guess, keeps it all like around that same number. And so hopefully it could lower my antibodies to where I'm more likely to get a heart, because I mean, right now I have like the perfect, they're telling me I have the perfect blood type. I'm the perfect age. I'm healthy other than all my heart stuff. So I'm like a great candidate for a heart transplant, but I have 99% antibodies, which means I'm not compatible with 99% of the US, organ. So, which I think is so crazy. That leaves me a 1% chance to get a heart, which I mean, I definitely believe in miracles, and, I don't think that God would have kept me here this long if I wasn't going to make it. It's all like in his timing. And I firmly, believe that. But I mean, if this study, this treatment can lower my antibodies even to 70, that gives me now, a 30 to 40% chance,
or you look into alternatives, and advocate, for yourself with this, and find that doctor. I mean, they're saying that she can live to see her great grandkids. I mean, so like I said, I don't know if I would want to be, that I don't want to be a burden. Like, you can lose your mind, but then you have a ticker, I mean, I have, I know what that's like too. So, but, I think that with our modern medicine and the technology and all of the above, I think that there is what we know, and then there's what we don't know. Yeah. And the United States of America, I want to say, or have most brilliant doctors, which we do, but we are a little behind when it comes to, certain things that the UK, I think, could maybe advocate for your situation and give you more of a higher percentage of that, you know. I mean, hey, if they would, fly you out to, like, I don't know, Paris or something, that's not such a bad shabby thing. I don't know where this place is. I have to go back into my database, but I thought it was remarkable. I'm sure if you look it up, I'm sure it can tell you where exactly. Yeah,
I'll definitely have to after this.
yeah, it's remarkable what we can do now, you know, with our
Yeah.
bodies. And so we don't want to, we want to tell OBGYNs to throw away their handbook a little bit, and update it, you know,
Yeah.
to the times, as well as, you know, what we, you know, what we could do possibly. I mean, like if there's a young woman who needs a new heart, and like you said, has such a low percentage, there are other, I believe, alternatives. You
Yeah.
know, I remember when my mom, we ironically had the same heart anniversary, November 25th. She had heart surgery. This was 28, now 29 years ago. We would have been able to share a heart anniversary together. But the doctor said, the pig valve won't fit, and neither will the mechanical. But ironically, so sad, a 16-year-old boy like died of, he was like on a motorcycle, and like that week, and they got my mom a heart. So I believe,
Oh,
you
wow.
know, it was really sad. It was really sad, but he was, that's a heart donor, and my mom needed a heart. She had like a heart murmur that she was born with. But it's amazing that they even said this was 28 years ago, that they had
Yeah.
a mechanical valve, you know? So
Yeah.
imagine, this was 28 years ago. Imagine they took that concept in Europe, and they just mastered it with a whole new
Yeah.
heart. And
Yeah.
now they're saying that, you know, this woman can live past to see her great grandchildren if she wanted to keep on living.
Yeah.
So
That is amazing.
it is there are
Definitely is.
alternatives. If there's like that, if that scares you, which it would scare the shit out of me, you know, like 99%, like I'd be like, okay, what's next? You
Yeah.
know, what's the backup to that?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so yeah, it is very scary, and I'm glad that you're on that. I don't know if you know much about Zoloft, but I do. I was a triage specialist. I know that, you know, I watched people go off of it, and when they were doing really really well, and then watch them spiral because it works so well, but it takes a full year, a full
Yeah.
year. It took me 8 months just to get up to 100 milligrams, because
Yeah.
I piece it, and now I'm on it, and it's been a year later. I'm a completely different person.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's
Definitely. And I know that they say it takes about like 30 days for it to fully get in your system and everything.
a
I'm
year.
telling you, when they put me on Zoloft, like the first week, I could tell a difference.
Yeah,
I could tell a
give it a
difference.
year. Give it a
Yeah.
year. And like I knew when I was at 50, it was on what was it? Valentine's Day last year or something like that, or something like that. I don't know. I was on 50 milligrams, and I knew I'm up in it, and I'm staying on 100 milligrams, and I never want to go off, because the trauma, you know,
Yeah.
there's so much awareness within the mind. We can't forget
Yeah.
about our brain. Like our mind is our main computer, and our mind can heal our heart, or it can also cause anxiety. You know, the mind is so
Yeah.
powerful, you
Yes.
know, and so the awareness of the dopamine and the serotonin and the fluid that's going in, it would be impossible for a woman, even if she's completely sane, normal, whatever. After this disease, you are no longer, you have had fluid trauma in your body, and it caused fluid trauma in your brain, and you just need
Yeah.
to balance it out, because when you get kept fed all of this more trauma, more worry, more fear. You know, for me, I can't live without my trazodone at night,
Yeah.
because, you know, we have subliminal anxiety,
Hmm.
and subconsciously that
Yeah.
can come out at night. And I was having night terrors where I was holding my
Yeah.
breath, and I'd wake up and I'd be like, and my
Yeah.
heart.
That's happened to me. That has happened to me. Yeah. I've definitely gone through that too.
And so I felt like, okay, I am either going to hold my breath during my sleep and not wake up, or I can figure out how to like nip this in the bud. And so I'm a really big advocate and believer on mental health, medicine, and to never go off. If a woman feels like I don't want to be on medicine my whole life, well, it's like why? You know, if it helps you and it
Yeah.
heals you and it will make you better, then why not? Because
Yeah.
and then like I remember this one specific conversation to this girl. It was like I said, you work so hard to be on your Zoloft and medicine for like a year or 2 years, and like and then you just go off of it. I'm like, but you work so hard to condition the fluid and the mind for it to be balanced. She says, well, because I felt good. And I was like, but don't you realize that you felt good and you feel good because the medication's working?
Yeah, because it's helping you. Yeah.
And then when you go off of it, you go on a worse downward spiral,
Yeah. Yeah.
worse than you were before. So it's like it makes no sense to me when a woman says, "Oh, I don't want to be on medication for mental health," and I'm like thinking, "Well, why not?
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. It's
Yeah.
actually it's the good medicine. It's
Yeah,
not
exactly. And I feel like more people like need to normalize that, because I feel like there is
yes,
like a bad stigma around like mental health, and people are like ashamed to talk
yeah,
about it or to say how they're feeling, or just because it's not talked about enough. And I feel like they need to know that that's okay, and that they're not alone, and that so many people you know deal with this. And I mean, it does help. It helps so much, and there's nothing to be ashamed of.
no, it's the fluid in our mind. It's like the
Yeah,
fluid in our
exactly.
it's like in our body. It needs to be regulated. The BNP, I mean, it's just awareness, and it should be normalized, and
Yeah,
it shouldn't make any man or woman feel less than. It's
exactly.
it's normal to have an imbalanced dopamine and serotonin. And if people were to understand that the mind is a beautiful organ,
Yeah,
and that I do believe in self-healing, but I knew I can zen my way every day, every minute, and it would not change the chemical from the
yeah,
trauma or whatever it is,
yes,
whether it's a car accident. I mean, everyone has a different
yes.
threshold
Hmm.
of pain. And when your body is saying, I don't feel right, especially during pregnancy, it's because there's something not right. When your mind is having a hard time and you're crying a lot and you're struggling a lot and you can't make ends meet and you're functioning like with your left hand when you're a righty, then you
Yeah,
don't need to like struggle. You don't like why would anybody want to?
exactly. Yeah,
And and to me, it's mental health is whether you go through something traumatic or not will always be there. Life is
yeah,
hard
yeah.
and there's nothing
Everyone's
wrong.
struggles are different. So, yeah,
Yeah, which is why I made sure, even though my mom passed away, even though I just had my heart surgery and my father was on his way out and passing away, um, I still went to Washington D.C. and spoke with the senators on May 8th, 2019, to make sure that that bill for postpartum depression went through. And
yeah.
I did a really good job. I think they were saying I
That's
hijacked,
amazing. Yeah,
because I said there's no way that a woman with peripartum cardiomyopathy will not experience postpartum depression, and that
definitely.
PPCM is extremely common. It's just rare for anyone to have awareness. So
Oh,
women,
am I there? Okay.
yeah. So women who have postpartum depression that haven't experienced PPCM, um, are it's a very real disease. I mean,
Definitely.
women have, even recently on our group site, a woman committed suicide, from postpartum depression. you
Yeah.
know, and it's so real. But on top of that, and having this disease, and I'm trying to like express that this disease is extremely common, but nobody's
Yeah.
aware of it. That even women who have postpartum depression, maybe they were PPCM and they didn't know it because they were never diagnosed.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's the fluid. It's what we all struggle with as women. We all struggle with fluid, whether it crushes our heart or crushes our brain, and men have it as well. So I feel like, you know, with mental health being normalized and talking about it and knowing different methods to meet the person at the level of their depression
Yeah.
can really save a life as well,
Definitely. Yeah, I completely agree.
because this
They
is a
can.
real struggle. I
Yeah.
mean, every night, you know, we say our prayers and we hope that we wake up the next morning,
Yeah,
and every day's a miracle.
it is.
And until, you know, not many people, you know, they go on with their life like as if they're invincible, you know, and they
Yeah.
don't realize that this would never happen to me, you know.
Yeah.
I never thought it could happen to me.
Yeah.
So it's like, well, if it happens to me, then it can happen to anybody.
Yeah. I know. And, I still think back at like everything that I've been through and everything that I've been diagnosed with and just how many surgeries I've had. And, I still like it's shocking to me. Like it still is so shocking to me. Like I'm like, wow, like I can't believe that, like I'm living right now with heart failure and I've gone through all this stuff and, I can never have another baby again. And, I need a new heart. And it's insane. It really is when you really sit there and I mean, I'm sure for you too, when you really sit there and you look back at like the last couple of years of your life, you're just like, wow, like I never in a million years would have dreamed or, thought that this would be where I would be today.
And losing track of my story, because that's me. I'm like kind of ADD a little bit. I'm not brain dead, but when I was telling you about the NBC show Life, where he came back as a dinosaur, well, I've been down for the count for 6 years.
Yeah.
2016, I coded. 18 months later, my heart surgery, my mom died, my dad died, and then COVID hit. So I'm just waking up kind of like now,
Yeah.
where there's this TikTok, and I'm like, what's TikTok?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm a little like, I'm so far behind on, and I know this brings it back. We got so off track, and I don't know where I went, but with why I didn't complete it. But that's kind of like how I feel. I feel like, okay, there's another social media, there's another one, because like I was so out of the loop, like literally,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. They're
Instagram.
constantly coming up with new things.
I'm like,
Yeah.
there's an Instagram now. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
It's so like, I'm
But
like, okay.
and I'm always so behind on getting on board with like the new things too. And then once once I'm like in it, then I feel like I'm just that type of person where I'm like super committed to it,
Me
Yeah.
too. I'm like, I have to get into this TikTok because I'm the same way. I'm like super committed, but if I don't know, I'm like, I don't really know.
And I definitely feel with TikTok, like you reach such a big audience with it, and so I feel like right now that's like one of the main like social media outlets that I think is a really, really good place to like share your story, share your journey, share awareness, like everything, because it is open to such a big, broad audience.
Yeah, well, feel free to tag at PPCM Fund
I
Survivors.
definitely will.
Tell all the other survivors to do that too, because
Yes.
I'm doing a docuseries, a radio podcast. I still, work on TV shows. I do because I love it. And
Yeah.
I love what I do with my career, and I love the career that I built, and the same producers and managers I've been working with for over 18 years on top TV shows, and I will always do this, but I am taking my moment to make sure that this is really catered to and this is put out there where
Yeah.
it has a chance,
Yeah.
to have this platform. So, feel free to tag, to tell
I
others to tag.
definitely will.
This is not my
Yes.
this is not my personal TikTok. This is the movement. This is the pregnancy movement TikTok,
Yeah.
because it's every woman should just, you individually post yourself, but this is a group where
Yeah.
people can actually, you know, see that
Yeah.
that this is so common,
Yeah.
on that survivors are the ones that really need to be listened to with this
Yeah.
disease, because there is a lot of informative, life-saving information, and you don't know which interview is going to save that life that
Exactly.
needs
Yeah.
to hear it.
Yeah.
And I do believe that you live for a reason. I mean, come on, you can't live without a heart. You can't live without, your heart beating, and you have been like through this heart journey since you were a toddler. So,
Yeah.
and you are still here, and you are spreading the awareness. And I believe, not many people can say that they were brought back from the dead, but I was. And
Yeah.
I could have easily stayed on the other side. And
Yeah.
like I get signs all the time. My mom shows off to me. She was very powerful and spirit when she was alive, that she, I know that, sometimes I feel like, even like I'm just walking, and my angels are just moving my feet. They're
Yeah.
I'm I'm moving my feet, but they're guiding me,
Yeah.
where
Definitely.
what needs to happen. And when, or I'll get like a radioactive like energy where, I'll hear something over and over, and I'll be like, okay, so that's what I'm supposed to do. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? It's like
Yeah.
the communication of energy never dies. And, all of us together, I believe, like, spiritually and energetically, we can build this like big like energy of like, hear us,
Yeah.
like, what do they call it? It's almost like when it's a invisible radio active, what is it called? Like, it's invisible, like we don't see it, but it's energy.
Yes. Yeah. You feel
Yeah.
it.
And I feel like all women that are on that peripartum cardiomyopathy group site, a lot of energy, a lot of
Yeah.
woman power that is
Yes.
being hidden in a corner where
Yeah.
nobody is listening. And the world should hear us, like we are,
Yeah.
like, as we will be the beacon of this pregnancy movement.
Yeah.
you
And
know
it all just starts with sharing your story and having a voice and speaking out. I mean, because if we don't do that, nobody's going to know, you know?
Absolutely.
And so,
Nobody
yeah,
does
I think
know.
it's amazing what you're doing. I think it's amazing, you doing these interviews and getting everybody's story, because even though we all have one thing in common, all of our journeys and all of our stories are so different from one
Yes.
another. And there's so many different ways and like so many different symptoms and so many different stories of like how this all played out. And like you said, I mean, one person's story, because they're all so different, it really could speak out to somebody else to make them want to
Absolutely.
go get help or seek help or ask these questions, or, that like a normal person wouldn't think of. Like I was, curious, like maybe if with the symptoms I was having that I was told was just part of being pregnant, I wonder if I would have asked for that echo sooner, if we would have caught it sooner, and if I would have been in a different place than I am right now. And I mean, I can't go back and change that, but we can tell our stories and help somebody else so they don't get to that point to where it's irreversible. They can get to that, like they don't get to that point where they're already diagnosed. It's already,
Absolutely. We can
yeah,
change their sliding doors.
exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I believe this, like,
Because I feel
Which is
almost like with all of us, it was kind of just too late, like the damage was already done.
yes,
I mean, I know that my doctor did say that there was,
100%.
hope that maybe we could turn this around, but he was also very honest with me that it might not, and I feel like maybe if we would have caught it a little bit sooner, my chances would have been higher. But I mean, now that's not the cards I was dealt. And now I just have to, take
And that's what
as
we're
good
doing
care
here.
of myself as I can.
And that's what we are all doing here. Like when we tell our stories, it's like we have the awareness.
Yeah.
We know about this disease. We're talking about this so this can prevent another young woman.
Yeah, it happening to the next person. Yeah, absolutely.
And preventing this catastrophe, like you said, like early diagnosis does
Yeah.
100% save a baby or a mom
Yeah.
or both. For me, it's late. It's too late, which is why I can't sleep at night knowing that there are so many individual pieces here of PPCM. There's so many little things like pieces that I'm just like I'm lying there. This was like November, and this was before at Cedar Sinai, before Leah died on the 21st, and I'm sitting there and I'm like, and I already kind of had this in my mind that I was going to do this, but it was almost like when it was a dream actually. It was a puzzle. It was like putting pieces together. And I always put puzzles together with my mom or my son or any, when she was alive, or my family, we always did puzzles. But I did, and I didn't even say this to my husband, but I did. I had a dream where I was literally putting puzzle pieces together of PPCM.
Yeah.
And this was before I started this, even creating a docu-series, and then I just couldn't believe it when I posted it. I mean, I'm already fully booked like to April, like past, and I even my husband stopped the calendar, but we extended because it's like, okay, if there's this many people that just want to share, and the ones, I mean, I've had over 100 or a few hundred interviews already of interviewing women, and I'd like to know how many I've done actually, because it's been a lot, but it really is. It's a big puzzle, and each person definitely adds that.
Yeah, something else. Yeah.
There's something that connects, or I learned something from somebody else that I'm able to like tell another, like who I love, Christine Peacock. I love talking with her yesterday, but we had an interesting conversation about relapse and how relapse can happen during the time of when you gave birth, or when you had your heart anniversary, because our bodies have memories, our muscle have memories, and our heart is a muscle. And during that time of that time when you did have your heart failure, to be good to yourself, be kind to yourself. And she said, you know what, that's very interesting. Right when I had the time when I had my baby, my EF% dropped, but it was already, it was a relapse. But now I'm back up. We all couldn't figure out why the EF% dropped, but it makes sense because our bodies have memory, and that's when relapse happens.
Yeah.
So I was showing her, I'm like usually good. For this heart anniversary, I bought myself a like a amethyst.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Thank you. I have a collection of all of them, but this one was specifically this past heart anniversary, and I just like, it's solid, it's tranquility, it's beautiful. I love it. So I try to always do something healing for myself around the death around that time because I don't want to relapse.
Yeah.
I'm like, please don't relapse. Please don't relapse.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's scary. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's truly, it's one of the most, it's a thought where I'm hoping to prevent from any other for other women. So thank you so much. And
Yeah.
what would you want to tell, I guess, a woman today who is watching this? Any advice that you can give her that's pregnant, struggling? The doctors say she's fine. The OBs, there's no diagnosis here in the United States of America in OB. What could you tell her?
I definitely would recommend to seek more help. If one doctor is not listening, go to another one, get a second opinion, ask for more blood work, ask for, because I feel like a lot of doctors too, like they're just like, oh, like this is normal, this is how pregnancy is, this is anxiety. And it's not, and I just feel like as much as like women need to like stand up more for themselves and advocate for themselves, I feel like we need more doctors who are willing to listen though. I feel like a lot of the times doctors are like, we're the doctor, you're the patient. But in a lot of cases, PPCM gets overlooked because they're not doing those tests. They're not looking into it that far, because it is rare. Yes, it is rare, but it still can happen to anybody, with prior heart issues or not. And
yeah, the thing is that it's not, nobody can say that it's rare if the test is not standard. We don't
exactly.
can't
Yes.
make an assumption
And that's like
with
the thing
something
is it rare because nobody's finding it until it's too late,
late. And
Yeah.
it's rare to be diagnosed. And you're right. Self-advocacy with the standard mandatory blood testings that need to be raised with the NT-proBNP test, the regular BNP
Yes.
test, not just for cardiology, but
Yeah.
for gynecology. And if we can't get the BNP test in gynecology as standard, then we get the SFLT1, which is the cardiotoxic fluid, and the -1 stands for genetic, and the PIGF, which stands for placental growth factor, that most countries have available the kits and instruments of those two diagnoses in gynecology, but it's not available in the United States of America. It is available in Canada. It is available in the UK in gynecology, but it's not and Dr. Fett talks about it all the time. I've called the reps, I've called the companies, I've even had conversations about this with Dr. James Fett, and he couldn't believe that FDA has not approved it. He's on so many other trips with with Haiti and other parts of the country, but he is not available in the United States of America, and it might not be available even in 2023. So we'll have to call back. So if we don't have any diagnosis in gynecology, and they don't raise the standard testings and screenings, then they can't say it's not rare. Nobody can say it's rare because it's not diagnosed.
Exactly.
And the ones that are diagnosed, there's a lot. It's far from rare. There's way too many. I'm full. I am like, my interviews are, I'm stocked. Like I don't even know. Like my husband's like, we both are taking a break. My husband's a musician. We are taking this time and this docuseries and this podcast to create change.
Yeah.
Because on a broader scale, this you can only self-advocate for so long, and that self-advocacy is definitely needed in every aspect. But you're absolutely right. There needs to be more testings because they're not listening. So if you're self-advocating, they're still not listening, that can turn into a life threat.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, it was Such a pleasure, meeting you face to face. I feel so
I know, it was so nice, like finally being able to like talk to you. And I can't wait to watch this and hear everybody else's story. And again, I think it's so amazing what you're doing, and keep doing it. And if you ever need anything, I'm
Absolutely.
here for you.
And same vice versa. I mean, I am a click away, I'm a text away. If you need to like vent or cry, nobody understands, and you just really don't want to, I don't know. I'm the type of person where, believe it or not, I'm a pretty private person.
Yeah.
I do work behind the scenes. You know, I was, I am Screen Actors Guild, I am SAG, but and I did do after, and I did stuff, but I chose to be behind the scenes. So being in front of the camera, I'm a little out of my comfort zone, but I feel like, this is definitely so important to me
Yes.
that, and I know that for others as well, they're like, I don't really want to, be seen and stuff, but it's not about, it's all about women coming together and
Yes.
lifting each other up, and knowing that we are. I posted actually last night that I that during my toughest moments I did it alone,
Yeah.
and that's how survivors, we all do it. We do it alone, but we don't really have to,
Yeah.
we need to
Yeah,
cry,
exactly.
vent, you know um it's a dynamic of relationships within this disease for sure.
Yeah.
um so I'm always here to take your call if you ever need, or text or message me on Facebook. And
Yes, I
um
will. And thank you so much. I really appreciate everything.
you're so very welcome. It's been so lovely and such a pleasure, and many blessings and daily prayers
Thank
for
you
your
so
head and
much. And the
heart.
same goes
And
to you.
yeah, and I actually I do have a little package for you. So when we get off, I will message you so I can mail it to you, because
Okay.
I have something. So
Okay. Well,
yay,
thank you so much. That's so
you're
kind of
so
you.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. And yeah, spread the word. Share the tag TikTok,
Yes.
ask others that are PPCM survivors to tag at PPCM Fund Survivors, because this is for all of us.
Yes.
This is not a this is not me. This is not my
Yeah.
personal TikTok. This is for
Yes.
all women.
Yeah,
So
definitely. And I will.
awesome. All right. Well,
All
all
right.
my love. Thank you so
All
much.
right. Thank you so much. You have a great day.
You too.
All right. Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for joining us and listening to the PPCM Fund podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. PPCM's Painful Truth is made possible through the generous support of donors like you. Help us spread the awareness by donating at ppcmfund.com, or click the link below to become a member through Ko-fi. Have a great day.